My name's Steve Bulger. I'm the president at eFulfillment service. We are an e-commerce distribution company, and I'll get into what that means a little bit later on. I've been there 11 years. Started out in marketing. Actually, that's what my background is in. So prior to eFulfillment, I was at 1UpWeb for 6 years, a local digital marketing agency. So came over, didn't know anything about logistics or shipping, other than it seemed like Amazon always used too big of a box to shipping the products they use, which they've gotten better at. So it's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed every minute, and looking forward to telling you a little bit more about it today. So what I'm blathering about today, I want to start by talking about e-commerce and the trends we've seen in e-commerce over the last few years and where we see it kind of moving forward. I'll talk with you, then lead into more about eFulfillment service and what we do, and some of the change that's going on in our organization and what's going to be driving that change. So I figured we'd start with a pop quiz. Everybody loves one. Being St. Patrick's Day, the topic is, why are leprechauns so grouchy? Just the crabbiest little fellas. So I want everybody to participate in this. If you're willing, how it works, you just pull out your smartphone, aim it at the QR code. There are also QR codes on your table. You should see a little URL pop up. And you just click on that and it goes right to the screen. And if that's not working for whatever reason, you can use that slido.com URL and just plug in that code. So yeah, someone I'll give you, okay. So far, Lucky Charms winning out. Don't really like making shoes, so I had to research these leprechauns as part of this and learned a lot. So the answer, and thank you for all having a little fun with me, is that they were kicked out of the fairy community, which I didn't even know they were fairies. Actually, they don't really look like fairies. Linda got that right. Yeah, apparently they're the, they got kicked out for being just mischievous, I guess. Another fun fact is that there are no female leprechauns, which I didn't really know. I guess never really saw one. So thank you again for having a little fun. I wanted to make this a little engaging. There are a couple of these throughout the presentation. Unfortunately, they're not all about leprechauns, but yeah. Yeah, they never can find, I know. So here's a quick stat. 16.4% was the percentage of e-commerce sales in Q2 of 2020. That's a lot of gold. Total retail sales in 2022 in all the U.S. was $7.1 trillion. So 16.4% of that was $1.28 trillion. So I don't know what everyone thinks of that. Is that a high number? Is that a low number in terms of all e-commerce sales? But what I can tell you is today it's 14.6%. So that 1.8% reduction equated to $128 billion reduction. But why is that? So we've been seeing e-commerce grow and grow and grow over the last 20 years, usually 10 to 15% year over year. So why did it go down from 2020 to 2022? Yes, COVID. So COVID grew e-commerce exponentially in a very short amount of time. And we had the effects of this, and I'll talk with you a little bit more about that at eFulfillment service. So here you can see in the blue line is what it was in 2019 in terms of e-commerce growth, and then in 2020 was the orange line. So you're looking at the first 16 weeks of the year. You can see in week 8, it wasn't really too much in the U.S. at that point, but it was in other countries, and we were starting to see the effects of that in terms of e-commerce. And then on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared it a global pandemic. Everything shut down, and people were shopping a tremendous amount online. So in a matter of just a few weeks, e-commerce grew 60% overall, which was a crazy amount. Now, during that time, everybody kind of thought, okay, e-commerce, that growth is here to stay. We've got all these people that have never shopped online before. They're going to start doing that now. They're going to realize the convenience of all that, and they're not going to go back to brick and mortar. Well, that really didn't happen, actually. So you can see the year-over-year growth from 2019 to end of 2022 here, and the blue there starting in Q2 of 2020 when the pandemic hit, 53% year-over-year growth, 49, 44, 46, and then it dropped way off. And again, we've seen this at our company, eFulfillment service. So historically, again, e-commerce has grown 10 to 15% year-over-year. In 2022, it was actually only at 7.7% growth, so the lowest in over a decade.
U.S.
Yes, yeah. This is U.S. growth. So I want to take one more poll real quick. So get out your phones one more time. So we know that e-commerce currently is at about 15% in the U.S. And it only grew 7.7% last year. So in 20 years or 17 years from now, what do you all think it's going to be at in terms of the total percentage of purchases made overall? So most of you saying 50%. The answer is actually 95%, is what's projected. So you all got it wrong. Yeah, they got it wrong. I know, I'm a little skeptical myself. There we go. Yeah. Linda. So yes, how can that be? How can we go from 15 to 95% in 17 years? Well, a few reasons that I want to talk about. First off, the younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, now Gen Alpha, which started in 2013. My daughter's a Gen Alpha. They're obviously very familiar with being online, being connected, commerce, mobile commerce, social commerce. This is just going to be their norm. We're not having to change any behavior with them, whereas you do with the older generations. Another thing I want to talk about is needing it now and getting it. That instant gratification. I have a product. This is what brick and mortar has long had an advantage over e-commerce with. I can go in there and get it today, now. Well, that's also, that disparity is shrinking. And then catering to me, meaning you know me. You know what I like. There's a personalization aspect to e-commerce that you can't get with traditional brick and mortar retail, and I'll chat about that for a little bit. So here we're looking at 4 different generations: boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. The light blue shows what percentage of them shop in store, and the dark blue is shop online. So you can see with boomers, 25% more in store. And so as you go down, you can see they don't shop as much. The Gen Z, they don't have any income, a lot of them. But you can see, again, that disparity go down. So it goes from 25% with boomers down to a 9% gap with Gen X, 5% with millennials, and just 2% with Gen Z. So, you look at this chart and you can kind of see how e-commerce 20 years from now could be obviously by far and away the main way that people shop. So younger generation is one aspect, and just their familiarity with being online and digital commerce. Another aspect is the marketplace effect. So what is a marketplace? What's an online marketplace? Amazon is an online marketplace. Anybody heard of this? eBay is an online marketplace. So a marketplace is basically a place where a lot of different types of products are from a lot of different types of sellers. It's not just one seller selling it. So I'll get into this a little bit more. We work with sellers who they set up their own web store, and they're the only ones who sell it. I'm the seller. Well, at Amazon, they have over half of their sales come from third-party sellers. Amazon has a lot of their own brands, but there's also a lot of third-party sellers that sell a ton on Amazon. 60% of people in the US are Prime members. So we don't have to do a digital poll, even though I like them, but how many of you are Prime members? About 60%. So why is Amazon so popular? And you can see here in blue, it shows Prime members, and then non-Prime members in orange. So, and it shows the frequency of which both categories will purchase through Amazon. So you can see, if you add it up, about half of Amazon Prime members shop there at least once a week. And that's about what I do as a Prime member. And so Prime is a program, you're familiar with it. The cost has nearly doubled over the last few years. But what they're trying to do is just lock you in, right? They give you all these benefits in addition to fast and free shipping, content, music. It just makes it so you're less likely to go elsewhere for the products, the convenience aspect of it as well. So some of the benefits of Amazon, as well as other marketplaces that we're seeing. Price. Amazon is so aggressive with price that they basically mandate if you're going to sell on their platform, you cannot offer that product cheaper anywhere else. And if they catch you, you basically get kicked off. So price, they're very competitive, obviously, with price. Selection, they have 12 million products on their marketplace. Convenience, I mean, you can buy it with one click. Very, very quick and convenient, although they don't apply your gift cards when you do that. So I usually do the 3-click checkout. But speed is really the main reason that they've gotten so big so fast. I mentioned it earlier, but you can walk into a brick and mortar and I can grab this product and I can walk out with it right there. So Amazon knew from the get-go, and they've invested hundreds of billions of dollars in this, is a fulfillment network that allows them to ship it to you fast and free. So they know that this is the one advantage, really, that brick and mortar has had over them. And they're investing a ton in making that even faster. So during COVID, Amazon built out, they basically doubled their warehouse network in 2 years. I mean, it's just a crazy amount of money, time, and resources that went into it. So they have 1,285 distribution centers in the US. We have one at eFullfillment. And so as quickly as they grew, they banked a lot on COVID, and again, e-commerce sticking around, but we saw that it didn't. And actually, e-commerce is right back to where it was had the pandemic never occurred. We're at the same level as again, if COVID didn't exist. So they went too big, too fast, as did a lot of tech companies. I don't know if you've heard about all these layoffs at these tech companies. Amazon just laid off 18,000 people. And it's, again, because they grew too quickly, too fast, banking too much on e-commerce and that sticking. So, but they're innovative and smart, obviously. So they launched what's called a Buy with Prime program. And this is where if I set up my own online store, and I'm not on Amazon maybe, I'm just selling in my own store, maybe I'm on eBay or a competing website, I can still use their fulfillment network. So I'm selling on my website, but I'm going to store my products in an Amazon warehouse, or 1,200 of them. And so this is Amazon's way of being creative with this ton of open warehouse space that's not being utilized because they built it out so they can fill it up in a diversified source of revenue. Now, that said, they still have 231 facilities planned to be built out. Most of these are same-day fulfillment centers. So a lot of their warehouses are 500,000 to 1 million square feet. And they're fully automated, just robots running around everywhere. Their future, though, is more what are called micro-fulfillment centers, so much smaller, and they use their big data to determine what are the most popular SKUs in that area. So I'm in the Chicago area. What are the products that are most likely to be requested by people in that area that want it the same day or maybe the next day? So they're shrinking their footprint and being strategic about what's placed in those fulfillment centers. They also just launched a program called Amazon Today. This is for brick and mortar retailers. So usually they don't like Amazon, but they're rolling it out. So if I have a store here in Traverse City, I can list it on Amazon, and it can say that it's available in store, and they'll geo-target. So I click onto Amazon. It knows I'm in Traverse City, and it'll show me products in this area, and it'll say you can pick it up right down the street, or it can be delivered to you, and then Amazon might actually pick that up. They have a massive, not only do they have a ton of warehouses, they have over 80 planes that they've purchased, and thousands and thousands of delivery vans. They're basically now competing heavily with UPS and FedEx. They're not the only ones. Target and Walmart. Target just announced they're investing $100 million in same-day delivery. What we're seeing in the logistics space is all these companies, not all of them, but these bigger ones are building out their own fulfillment networks. Amazon's had one for a long time. It's called Fulfillment by Amazon. And if you're a seller on Amazon, in order to get that Prime badge, so all of our Prime members, you normally buy Prime products for the most part. If you're going to get that Prime eligibility on their marketplace, you have to use their fulfillment network because they view it as, hey, we want to get it to our customers in 2 days, and we're the only ones we trust to do that. So it's actually a bit of an antitrust kind of thing that Europe's cracking down on. But Walmart's doing the exact same thing. Target predominantly uses third-party delivery companies like Shipt. I don't know if anybody's used Shipt. But what is one thing that Target and Walmart have that Amazon doesn't have? Yeah, brick and mortar stores. They've got thousands of them. So Walmart, I think there's some stat that they have a store within 20 miles of 90% of the population in the US. So they're leveraging that network. They weren't built to be distribution centers, but that's how they're leveraging them, and they're turning them into distribution centers to try and compete more with Amazon. So everybody's moving to marketplaces. Again, these marketplaces, they're different than setting up your own store, which I'll get to in a little bit. But just like Amazon, Walmart, they have third-party sellers. If you're selling online, I can join Walmart. There's a grueling application process for that particular platform, but you can do it just like Target and all of these. So if you look at the top 9 websites, they consume 60% of US e-commerce, just 9 websites. So everybody's moving to these marketplaces, including sellers, because that's where the consumers are. And it's hard to compete. You know, if I set up my own store and I'm selling beauty products, how are people going to find me? You know, like half of all product searches, when I'm starting with a product search, half of all people go to Amazon to begin with, not Google. But if I do go to Google, how am I going to show up? If somebody just types in skincare products, it's going to be these websites that show up in Google. So if I can't beat them, you know, join them. Whoops. It's not just a U.S. thing. While North America has 51 of the top marketplaces in the globe, our continent has just 8% of the population. So Asia has 60% of the population, but just 16 of the top marketplaces. And then you can see Africa, which has 18% of the global population, has just 3. So most of the bigger ones are actually in China. Taobao is the biggest in the world. They're owned by a company called Alibaba, one of the largest global companies. Tmall is right behind there, then Amazon. So you can see, we think Amazon's big. Taobao's about twice as big. So 3 of the top 4 marketplaces in the world are in China. 4 of the top 5 are in Asia. And a lot of these, Indonesia is one of the fastest growing spots for e-commerce, as is India, as is the Philippines. So there's a lot of potential in these areas. So here's top 10 countries ranked by retail e-commerce share. So what percentage of the population buys online? I mentioned earlier it's about 16%. You can see US number 7 there. In China, almost half of people, half their transactions, retail, are online. So they're way ahead of us in terms of how many people buy online, followed by several other countries. So again, not just a US thing. I mean, we're growing, and we've got a very sophisticated e-commerce marketplace, but still only 16% roughly of transactions are online. So at eFulfillment, we work with a lot of these people in these countries. We've actually been targeting the Philippines with our advertising. A tremendous amount of our clients are based in the UK, Canada, Australia, Israel, Malaysia. I mean, we've had companies from all over because they want to tap the US market, but they don't have a distribution center here. And they can't ship it from the UK. It's too expensive. People don't want to wait that long either. We're very impatient here, thanks to Amazon. So we've talked about the younger generation and how they're going to lead the growth of e-commerce. We've talked about marketplaces and the speed at which they're able to deliver products, which has made a big impact. Now I want to talk about something else, which is personalization and artificial intelligence, and it's having a big role here. So personalized results are becoming increasingly important for online marketplaces. That was a chatbot that wrote that, which I want to talk about in a second. So this is an Amazon homepage. Who's familiar with this kind of thing? You log in, and we have Graham here, and you get a quick snapshot of what he's been doing, what he's ordered, top categories, books, CDs, toys, and games. You go to the right, and you can see top video recommendations, followed by music. So this is what I mean about personalization. Amazon has a ton of data, obviously, on you, and they leverage it. And so when you go back there, they're going to show you more of what you want in related categories. And I'm sure you see it when you check out here some other things that you might like. So this is a big advantage Amazon and these big companies have over brick and mortar, the ability to personalize the experience. So when you do that with all this data, not only can you tailor products and content toward individuals, targeted advertising, and a little over a year ago, Apple made a change to their iOS software where, and a lot of you may have noticed this, when there was a software update and you went to a third part or an app, it would say, do you want this app to track you? And most people put no. And so that really hurt some of these tech companies like Amazon, not so much Amazon as it was like Facebook. So they used to use your browsing data on other apps, and they would get that data, and they could use that to better target advertisements on their own platform, like Facebook and Instagram. And for me, I don't care. Track away, because I would like more targeted advertising, and a lot of people do as well. But they'll show you products that relate to your interests, as well as based on your profile information on these marketplaces, as well as just on your browsing behavior throughout the web. Customized promotions, rather than just sending some blanket email that shows any kind of product. I know you're into this, so why don't I send an email that says, okay, you're into baking. Now we're going to show you the latest and greatest baking products on our store, and here's a promotion for it. And then smarter customer service as well. I mean, if you have all this data and you're able to present it to customer service reps, they can also tailor the experience for you. So again, just a tremendous amount of advantage that the level of data that they acquire can have in terms of the experience that they deliver to people. So speaking of AI, has anybody heard of ChatGPT? So the ChatGPT is a new artificial intelligence chatbot. It was the one that wrote that little snippet I had earlier. And I wanted to kind of demonstrate this for you, just so you can kind of see the power of it. And hopefully this works here. So to get on this, anybody can get on it. I have a premium membership, so it works a little faster for me. But basically, you can type in anything into this chatbot. It's created by a company called OpenAI, and it just rolled out a few months ago. The latest version just rolled out 3 days ago. And so a lot of people were freaked out when it rolled out because they've never really seen anything like it. Now, artificial intelligence and these chatbots have been around for a long time, This one was heavily funded by Microsoft, and they're going to be incorporating it in all their products. They've already utilized it in their search engine called Bing, which nobody knows about Bing. Nobody uses it. Google's had the vast majority of the market share for years now, but this could be a potential game changer, and they've already incorporated it into Bing. A lot of teachers are freaked out because students are using this to write papers for them. So I can kind of give you an example. We're at the country club, so tell me about the Traverse City Country Club. I don't know if many of you can read it. I don't need to read this whole thing, but it says it's a private, member-owned country club located in Traverse City. The club was established in 1915, has a rich history of providing exceptional golf, dining, and social experiences, and it goes on. So one of the most amazing things about ChatGPT is the way that you can just have like a human-like interaction with it. So I can just say, well, that was great, but tell me more. Golf and tennis, the new swimming pool. So it's really, really cool. So how this works is that AI is forced to learn with the help of humans, but they feed it a tremendous amount of information. So this has information up until 2021. So that's one of the flaws, is that it's not like really current information, even though it knows about the pool. Wasn't that after 2021? So let's say I want to be more specific. That's too much information now. Summarize this in 3 paragraphs. It's pretty wild stuff. And this isn't copied from anywhere. You know, it has all its sources, but it's not. You know, if you copy and pasted this into Google, it's not, none of this is listed on a website. It's generating all this information on its own, which makes, so it's not really plagiarism per se. It can do so much more than that kind of stuff. I could tell it to I'm telling it to create a table in HTML that I could plug into a website of the top golf scores ever. And it's basically going to code a table for me. Tiger Woods, 272. So it's pretty wild stuff. Let me see how I'm doing with my presentation. Can't help me. But it does, last time I did this, it would tell me like certain things to look for in order to determine if I'm doing a good job. Anybody have anything they want to, any other quick searches you want me to do?
Who's going to win the MFSA?
I tried that. I already tried that. It didn't work. It said, so, yeah, I can't predict the future, but I did help it, use it to create my bracket. So yep. That's all right. Well done. Back to where we were. So I just wanted to show this to kind of demonstrate the power of it. This is what's largely behind all these personalized results that you see, and it's only going to get more and more sophisticated. I made jokes to Marta, my partner, about Terminator and the Skynet taking over the world, and I mean, we're getting there. It's pretty, can kind of be a little scary. Google has their own thing called Bard, but they're slow to roll it out because they want to do it properly, but it's getting very, very sophisticated. So now moving into eFullfillment for a little bit. See how we are on time. So how do we fit in all this? So we're an e-commerce order fulfillment company. We have 220,000 square feet of warehouse space here in Traverse City. We've been around for 23 years now. Family owned and operated. John Lindbergh is the founder of our company. His son Jordan and Jason are heavily involved. So just great guys to work for. I've learned a ton. We have 85 team members, over 600 different online merchants that we work with. Again, across the globe, almost half of our clientele is based outside the U.S. Process 15,000 orders a week, 60,000 different SKUs. A SKU is a stock keeping unit, different products. We have about 3.3 million total units in our warehouses. And then again, 220,000 square feet. So yeah, we've seen incremental growth. I've heard several stories from John about how it took 5 years to make any money. But after that, we just kept growing consistently. But it was all manageable. And then in 2020, we had the COVID computer commerce craze. And just like everybody else, in e-commerce, we grew a crazy amount in a short amount of time. In a 6-week period, we went from 20,000 orders a week to 40,000 orders a week. So we doubled our order volume in 6 weeks. That was tough because at the same time, nobody really wanted to work. Everybody was at home. We couldn't hire people. We were on overtime for about 18 months, so I wasn't very popular at that time. Since COVID, though, we've shrunk a fair amount. So just like everybody in e-commerce, we've seen the effects of the downward trend. We did 225,000 orders during the holiday season of 2020 in a 5-week period because we have to ramp up a tremendous amount during the fourth quarter. A year later, it was down 60%. So we've shrunk, and we've had to make some tough cuts, and that wasn't fun. But we're much more manageable now. Our top line went down, but our bottom line didn't go down a whole lot because we focused more on process improvement and optimization, better clients, those that fit what we want to be doing, and it allowed us to take a step back and really look at the bigger picture. As I've said, e-commerce is shrinking. It's getting a lot more competitive out there. Sellers are having a hard time making sales that are not on a marketplace. Those marketplaces are supported by their own fulfillment networks. So, where do we fit in? So we've always catered to small businesses. Startups, we take on startups. The majority of our clients are startups. I mean, a lot of them have their own day jobs, and they just want to start selling online. And they send us a little bit of inventory. And we have a tremendous amount of clients that don't ship anything. So what we bring to the table for these online sellers is they don't want to be shipping this stuff out of their garage or out of their own warehouse. They're entrepreneurs, they're creative individuals. They should be spending their time on marketing, product sourcing, what's my next thing. Don't spend your time packing boxes. We'll do that for you. So we integrate with their shopping cart. We make it automated for them. We pull their orders into our system. We go out in our warehouse. We pick, pack, and ship them out. And then we get tracking and inventory back to their stores and their customers. So again, this has kind of always been our bread and butter, small businesses, ever since the beginning. More and more, we're seeing smaller accounts. And in aggregate, they add up, so that's great. They're fine. But they're also supported by some bigger clients, and we need more of those because they're harder and harder to get. And it's not necessarily because of what we're doing. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's also, again, just kind of the trend with all this volume moving to marketplaces. So our focus is we want to add more value. But how do we do that? So one thing is we know what you have to do is change the conversation. We're viewed largely as a commodity in our space. We're price shopped. That's all people focus on. It's just like consumers when you go on Amazon, who's the cheapest? So Amazon has set that bar, and it affects us. So sellers, when our salespeople are talking to them, it's what's your price? Oh, well, I can get it 10 cents cheaper over here. I'm going to go over there. So we try to overcome that with the value that we bring. We like working with international sellers because they value other things other than price. Because order fulfillment, it's not just as simple as putting stuff in a box and shipping. There's a tremendous amount of ebb and flow, making sure orders get out on time, they're accurate, all that. But that's still tough to sell, and they view it as, hey, anybody can put stuff in a box and ship it. So how can we change that conversation? Because being shopped on price is not a good position to be in. At the same time, how can we mitigate our weaknesses? Really, our biggest weakness is our location. Even though Traverse City is one of the most beautiful spots ever, it's not the best distribution point. We're at the top of a peninsula here. Most product comes in through California from Asia. You got to truck it or rail it all the way to Chicago, then up to Traverse City. There's a big cost associated with that. Now it's got to get distributed all the way back down, maybe back to California, which is our highest ship-to state. So what do we do about that? We've talked about opening up other fulfillment companies. There's a big cost with that. It's complex. We're up against Amazon, as well as other firms that have huge venture capital funding, tens of millions of dollars. So we opened up another one out west. Well, we're still at 1,293 behind Amazon. So one of the things we want to do is focus on market segments. E-commerce is huge. There are a lot of different types of sellers out there that sell a lot of different types of things. Some are small, some are big, some have expiration dates, some need some kind of special handling. So we've always kind of tried to be a jack of all trades, essentially. We'll bring on anything, but that's not smart, I don't think, moving forward. So I'm sure people at my guest table are sick of me here talking about this, but one of the industries I have my eyes set on is the wine market. And I've been researching that now for a couple of months. So why wine? Well, there's 85 different wineries in the state of Michigan and a lot more in other parts of the Midwest. But we're working to mitigate our weaknesses, one of them being that inbound logistical cost I just talked about. So wineries, they produce right here. They don't have to ship it anywhere, right? But beyond that, how can we focus on a niche that requires certain capabilities? If I'm a winery, I have tax compliance issues. I have other legal issues I have to deal with. I have to have temperature control within my facility. So what we want to do is focus on market segments that allow us to invest in capabilities that more align with that market, rather than just being, we have a warehouse and we'll pack stuff. No, we also can handle your tax compliance. We're integrated with this platform that wineries work with. We have the temperature control you need. So now the conversation isn't so much about price. It's what other value do you bring? So what kind of drives that decision? I know I'm running out of time, so I want to just kind of dive into metrics. We're definitely a heavily data-driven type company. That data has helped make these decisions focus on, okay, we're seeing the writing on the wall here, so to speak. So how do we pivot? So the kind of title of the presentation today was, if you can't measure it, then you can't change it. And I really believe that, or you can't do so smartly. So here's just a few of the metrics that we track at eFullfillment service. We track orders coming in and going out by hour, by day, by type. We track how many units and SKUs are coming in, errors, how many errors are we making by quantity, by type. We track labor hours in all areas of the company, including indirect versus direct. Revenue by department, we have a receiving department, a returns department, an inventory control department, an outbound department, small parcel and freight. We're tracking metrics associated with every single one of those, as well as revenue per hour. By service type, by carrier, by client. Fee margin as a percentage of sales. This one's important because we just switched up and made a pretty dramatic change to our pricing structure to be more in line with some of our competition. And it shifted dollars from one service area to another. So we, fortunately, with as much data as we have, we could easily track the before and after associated with different categories and make sure we're not losing money. We track a number of sales and marketing metrics, reasons that our clients close out, as well as team and client satisfaction. So, getting back to what our direction is moving forward, our sales team and in marketing, we have hundreds of conversations with prospects every single week. These e-commerce sellers, they're on the front lines. So what are they saying? What are their needs? What are their objections? And track all that. It can't just be something that you hear about and you're sort of arbitrarily saying, well, I think this is a trend. we have a CRM system where we jot down, what are their objections, track that in their lead record. And then we can run reports to generate that, and we can identify trends. We know West Coast fulfillment, people say that they want to be in the West Coast. That's an objection that we tracked over time, and we developed a new sales tool to help mitigate that. Well, you know what? If you're on the West Coast, almost half the country is a higher zone shipment, which means it's a higher cost. When you're in Michigan, it's much less. So we created a sales tool to visualize that, and that just came from tracking all this. So it just helps with our culture internally of continuous improvement. We can get a little better every single day. We do thousands of transactions every week, so you get just a little bit better, and that adds up. It's created an ability to incentivize our team and have performance-based metrics because we track how they're doing, and they get rewarded when they do well, and there's a bonus structure for that. It influences, like I've been talking about, our corporate strategy and where we're going, and then, of course, figuring out if it's working. So benchmarking, and then putting SMART goals in place. I don't know if we actually have time for this. I was going to ask everybody, what metrics you track internally, but I think we'll just. Did I go off? May I? We'll skip this one. So, again, I guess one of the things I wanted to relay to all of you in business and business owners is just the ongoing need to drive change. Obviously, we all need to adapt at some point, and it's about making smart decisions, right? So do you have the tools that you need in place to make smart decisions and go in the right direction? It's a little scary to pivot. In fact, the main reason that second stage companies, meaning you're past the startup phase, that they fail is that they get away from doing their bread and butter. But it doesn't mean we can't pivot, or that we don't have to pivot, but you're going to be making an investment in time and money, so making sure that you just have the right tools in place to make sure you're doing that correctly. So to sum up, e-commerce is changing very quickly. It's gone up. It's gone way back down. It's going to continue to go up a little more incrementally. Hopefully there are no more pandemics. And we need to adapt, and then improvement, again, it starts with measurement. I wish I could kind of show you some of the systems that we have to track all this, but again, the goal is just tracking everything from sales to operations, and then again, client and team satisfaction. So that is it.